Hi, can I check sharing the content?
Yes, yes, please. Good evening, everyone. Neha, I'm starting with the program. Maybe you can keep admitting people in as they join.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Smita Kare. I'm Manager Bioincubation at Venture Center Pune, and I welcome you all to this program, Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Key Drivers of Bioeconomy, which is organized by BIRAC's Regional Bioinnovation Center at Venture Center Pune. This year, to celebrate 75 years of progressive India, Government of India has initiated Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav to celebrate achievements and the spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Venture Center would also be celebrating its 15th Foundation Day this year. So this is a great time to celebrate the spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship. So to tell you more about Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, this was launched by our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi as a tribute by our people to our freedom fighters and freedom movement. During the celebrations, the country will not only remember all the important milestones, but also gain new energy for the development of our future and the Atmanirbhar Bharat. One of the key drivers for Atmanirbhar Bharat is Indian bioeconomy. And for India to realize its vision of reaching the $100 billion Indian bioeconomy by 2025, it must focus on high value opportunities that are driven by innovation. And recently, the biotechnology sector took the pandemic in its stride and has proved that we have a good innovation ecosystem in our country. And I'm sure today's speakers will be speaking more about it. So without further delay, I will now start with a brief overview of Venture Center. Neha, is my presentation visible?
No, Smita, it is on the Windows screen. You need to keep that open and share the Windows screen.
Sure.
Share the PPT, not the Windows.
Sure, I'll do that. Now is it visible?
It's coming. Yeah, it's open now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Venture Center has been incorporated as Entrepreneurship Development Center in 2007. So the mission of Venture Center is to nucleate. By nucleating, we mean we support the beginners, early stage startups, and nurture them, the technology and knowledge-based enterprises for India by leveraging the scientific and engineering competencies of the institutions in the region. We are hosted by CSIR NCL. We are the first incubator under CSIR and supported by Department of Science and Technology, the NSTEDB, and Department of Biotechnology, BIRAC, and we are one of the India's largest bioincubator bioincubator. We have got recognitions on international and national platforms. So on the extreme left, you can see the National Award for TBI, which we won in 2015. So that's Dr. Premnath, the founding director of Venture Center, receiving the award at the hands of President of India. In the center, you can see the international award, which we won for Asian Incubator of the Year award in 2018, and the recent one, the National Entrepreneurship Award in 2019. So we are hosted by CSIR NCL. We are an approved incubator by DST, NSTDB, and BIRAC. We are a recognized scientific and industrial research organization, CSIRO, by DSIR. We are registered as a Section 8 company, a non-for-profit. So as Venture Center, we have created a unique innovation ecosystem for all early stage startups. So these are the services which we are offering at Venture Center, starting from advisory and mentoring services for all the early stage startups to raise fundings and fellowships. So we have in-house mentors and we are well connected with all external experts. We have very good scientific prototyping and specialized facilities for doing your proof of concept work and validating it. So there is a tinkering lab, proto shop, there is a medtech clean room, there is mass spec facilities, there is Center for Biopharma Analysis, and then there is a cell studio. So we offer dedicated lab spaces and office spaces, ready to move in spaces for our startups. We help them raise fundings, investments, and we provide them all the technology commercialization support. So we have in-house intellectual property facilitation center, technology transfer facilitation center, and a regulatory information facilitation center. So we run a lot of events in the form of talks, trainings, and workshops, which provide us a good platform to network and build our networks more. And these are the larger ecosystem partners, all the R&D organizations around Pune. So talking about Venture Center in numbers, till date, we have supported more than 500 startups. At any given point of time, there are 65 plus startups on the campus. We are very proud to tell that more than 30% of the founders have been women founders. Most of them have PhDs or MTechs from premium institutes. More than 85% of them are still active since the inception. As I mentioned about the events we run, we have supported more than 10 startup spin-offs from R&D organizations. So overall, it's a 10 acres campus where the 50K plus spaces for incubation. So these are the different sectors. Most of them are working in healthcare, and then there are rest of them working in energy, environment, sanitation, agriculture, secondary agriculture, food, nutrition, and other inventive enterprises in IT, engineering, electronics. So these are the different clusters which are emerging at Venture Center. So on the right-hand side, you can see the logos of the startup companies which are there on the campus. So very proud to present this particular slide, and some of our panelists will be speaking. So they are featured here. So these are the leading edge technologies with global impact which have been developed by Venture Center Incubatees, which are first in India or first in the world. So we are there on social media, and these are our social media handles. I request everyone to kindly connect with us over social media to stay updated with all our events, announcements regarding the funding calls and the new service launches. So thank you very much. Kindly get in touch. These are our contact informations. So I'll stop here with the Venture Center overview. And we'll start with our first talk. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first eminent speaker for today, Mrs. Shreya Stambe. Mr. Shreyas Tambe is the President and Deputy CEO of Biocon Biologics. As a Biocon veteran, he joined Biocon in 1997 and has since then taken on positions of increasing responsibility. He has over 20 years of leadership experience in operational and strategic roles and has led large, diverse teams at R&D, manufacturing and projects and engineering during his tenure. Prior to becoming the Deputy CEO, Shreyas was the COO and a key member of the executive leadership team at Biocon Biologics. Previously, as the Senior Vice President and Global Head of Biocon's Insulins Business Unit, he was responsible for the P&L and expanding the insulins portfolio across several geographies. He led the development, approval, and launch of insulin analogs in Japan and later in EU and US. It was under his leadership that Biocon made its first overseas investment in R&D and manufacturing in 2015, building Asia's largest integrated insulins complex in Malaysia, which is approved by the US FDA and EMA, among other regulatory agencies. So he began his professional journey at Biocon as a management trainee, starting out in the R&D department, where he led the design and development of a novel bioreactor, the PLA Fractor, a unique solid-state bioreactor that got Biocon its first US patent and went on to win the National Award for the Best Technology of the Year in 2001. He holds a master's degree in bioprocess technology from ICT, earlier known as UDCT, University of Mumbai, and has studied pharmaceutical sciences from University of Pune. He was conferred with the coveted Distinguished Alumnus Award by his alma mater, UDCT, in 2020. And being an ICT alumnus, I'm very proud to be introducing you. I request our director, Dr. Premnath, to kindly welcome Mr. Shreyas Tambe.
Good evening, everybody, and good evening to Mr. Tambe as well. It's my pleasure to welcome you. Actually, I wanted to have Dr. Ashish Lele, the director of NCL, welcoming you. He's also a fellow UDCT alumnus and distinguished alum. So that would have been great, but he had some emergency. So I will do the honors. Today, as I'll just keep it very brief, Venture Center is open to all kinds of inventive enterprises and science-based businesses. And we have been working with a whole variety of startups. But of course, biotech and various allied disciplines are our core strength. And this covers a lot of domains, as you might have seen from the other speakers also today, including diagnostics, devices, therapeutics, industrial biotech, and so on and so forth as well. But when we think about celebrating, say, 75 years of independence, I think we have to look at some of our iconic companies, and clearly Biocon is right up there. So it's a pleasure to have you here to speak to this audience and also to, in a way, in our own fashion, celebrate 75 years by talking about the innovation and entrepreneurship culture and ecosystem and industry that has been built over such a so many years and now is taking shape, and hopefully will create waves around the world in the coming years to come. So welcome to you, and over to you without further ado. So over to you, Mr. Tambe.
Thank you, Dr. Premnath. And thank you, Dr. Smita Khare. It was, your words of introduction have been very kind and very generous in how you've introduced me. And I'm very happy and humbled to be here at your event. It is, very appropriate that we are celebrating 75 years of independence, talking about entrepreneurship and innovation. And I'll be happy to share my thoughts on what we see in terms of innovation and how we would drive that in terms of the bioeconomy and what Biocon has done in that space. So if you're okay, I would like to set up a few slides, and we'll talk through in the next 15 odd minutes, and then I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, sure. Kindly present your screen.
Thank you. Are you able to see my slide deck?
Yes, we are able to see.
Okay, so I've actually, added a slight perception to our dimension to the innovation entrepreneurship topic that that Ventures Center had put up, and that's the additional objective is the affordable innovation that we've added in to that aspect. And why do we say that? And that actually is going to be the main topic of my talk today. Is why should innovation be affordable? Isn't it enough that innovation is innovation in itself? And shouldn't that be good enough to celebrate? And isn't that sufficient to make that transformation that we're looking for? I think the take that I have had over a period of time, and Biocon's actually lived that ethos, as has Kiran, and that's her ideology, that for innovation to be meaningful, it needs to be accessible to those in need of it. Otherwise, that innovation is great to have, but it's really not going to have the impact that it could have. And that's why for us, we've always looked at innovation to have been affordable, so that the cost-effective solutions that it provides can be accessible to many. And why do I say that? And I want to take you through a couple of examples. Have a look at this, this graphic here, and I look at it from a healthcare dimension. Is access to treatment only supposed to be the privilege of a few? If you look at what the graphic here on the screen looks like, there are about 40 million deaths a year on non-communicable diseases. And about close to 80% of those occur because of limited access to treatment. So if you look at this pie chart here, out of the 40 million deaths, 32 million deaths occur in low and middle income countries. So if you were to look at this further on the cancer conundrum, and if you were to see how the underfinancing of cancer is categorized by Nature magazine, they call it the 5/80 disequilibrium. And what it means is only 5% of global resources for cancer care are invested in low and middle income countries, despite the fact that 80% of life years are lost overall come from the low and middle income countries' population. Let's take another example and look at the communicable space. Now, we've all been looking at what's happened over the last year and a half, and there have been several instances. There have been huge outcries of countries kind of not sharing what they have with them. Well, look at this graphic here. If you look at the high and middle income countries, they have secured 70% of the doses that have been manufactured globally to date. And they actually constitute to a fifth of the global population. So in a sense, US, which is now close to vaccinating half or maybe over a half of its population, while there are countries like Guinea, which would not have had access to even less, or maybe even less than 1% of their population. So clearly there is an inequality in terms of how healthcare is being accessed. Now I want to use a quote, and I want to read it out because I don't want to misrepresent. And that's from, let me just access that. So the AIDS Healthcare Foundation President Michael Weinstein recently said, this scandalous discrepancy in vaccine access is more than just wrong. It's disgusting, immoral, and dangerous. So clearly, there is this disparity that exists in terms of access because of affordability. Now, that's not limited to just individuals who are trying to pay for treatment, but also in terms of countries which are trying to afford treatment for its population. So how can affordable innovation then make a difference? So what I've done here is I've picked a couple of case studies, or maybe just one case study in terms of biosimilars, and see if that can drive savings to the healthcare system and make that affordable innovation accessible to more people than before. Now, as we know, biosimilar medicines are basically clones of the biological originator drug. And they are complex products. They are, they need sizable investments to develop them and then manufacture them at scale and then bring them to the market. But basically, they are the same products in the sense that they have no clinically meaningful differences from their originator drug. And they have the same clinical efficacy, the same safety profile. So what can these biosimilars do? Now, the first biosimilar which was approved, and I take an example of Europe, was infliximab, and that was in I think the first to be approved in 2006. But take an example of infliximab, which was in 2014. The market expanded at a compounded annual growth rate of 8%. So that was a significant expansion over the last 7 years. Annually, there's an 8% growth. And if you look at the price decline in terms of its affordability, there's been a price decline of almost 80% from what it was in 2014. So clearly, having an affordable option has not only increased access over the last 7-8 years that it has been here, but it's also resulted in affordability in terms of making it more affordable to patients over time. I use this example in Europe, and then I bring this closer to home, which is what happened with Biocon's Trastuzumab, where we have always been committed to delivering affordable healthcare, and in this case, I've taken an example of Trastuzumab, where today over 2 million new patients who are diagnosed with breast cancer globally every year, and 25% of them are HER2 positive. They need treatment with Trastuzumab. When we introduced biosimilar Trastuzumab in 2014, it was the world's first and the most affordable Trastuzumab that could have been available to any patient anywhere in the world. In 2017, we brought Trastuzumab to the world. We actually brought biosimilar Trastuzumab to the US, and we were the first to have been approved by the FDA. Now, over time, over the last 4 years that we've been through the US, and from 2014 that we've been bringing this product to patients in India, we've been able to serve over 22,500 patients, increasing access to them in over 70 countries. So this is just an example of what a biosimilar can do. I picked an example in Europe, I picked an example in India, from India going global, and the difference that it can make if innovation is affordable, and it can then increase access dramatically. A few comments on what Biocon Biologics has been doing early on in the talk today. Dr. Smita Kare talked about what companies have done in India and how have they been successful in bringing innovation to the global marketplace. I think at Biocon Biologics, we've been committed to leveraging all our capabilities, scientific, engineering, technological, to increase access to these life-saving medications. I talked about one in the slide before. Let me talk to you a little bit about what our commitment to this has been. We've always focused on cutting-edge science. We've brought in innovative proprietary technology platforms. We've focused on a comprehensive biosimilars pipeline. So far, we've taken 5 biosimilars from lab to market, and we are commercializing another 3. We are amongst the top 15 biopharma players globally in terms of scale and capacity. And we have the largest manufacturing site for monoclonal antibodies in India. So in all, Biocon Biologics in India has now been able to build capabilities right from a lab to take a product to market. So this is an example of what an Atmanirbhar company should be for building product in India or made in India for the world. And I cite 4 examples for you to look at. Starting from the top left, that was a recombinant human insulin that we developed and brought to patients, significantly reducing the the cost as well as the affordability, bringing affordability to the diabetics in India first, and then to many emerging markets, over 60 countries in the world. And then if you look at the one at the bottom, which is the biosimilar glargine, insulin glargine, a long-acting analog, which we brought to Japan in 2016. And 2017, I just talked to you about the first biosimilar Trastuzumab to have been ever approved in the US. And likewise, we had another first where we were the first biosimilar pegfilgrastim to have been approved and launched in the US. So you can clearly see there's a lot that the company is proud of, but we are very proud that the Indian ecosystem allowed a company like ours to prosper and then bring products which are made in India by Indians for the world. An example of innovation, and this is, people generally perceive innovation as one big eureka moment. And we've always looked at innovation in small things, and that's also equally important, even as you pursue one major breakthrough innovation. And one example of that is how our clinical team, and of course led by our executive chairperson, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw herself, looked into our portfolio as the world was trying to battle this pandemic, the COVID-19 menace that we've been dealing with for over the last 18 months. I think the ingenuity in bringing itolizumab, which was essentially a product that we had developed for psoriasis, and repurposing it to see if it can treat the cytokine release syndrome in those patients who were affected by acute respiratory distress, has been just phenomenal. We've been able to save 7,000 lives in the last 3 months. And we're looking at opportunities to see if this can be expanded to many more patients. So I think this is just an example of what innovation can do beyond just having one breakthrough major blockbuster. We've also been committed, and this is something we've stated publicly, that any innovation that we've done, the mission for us has always been to see that we can reach many more patients than products have reached before. Because treatments and therapies and solutions have always been available, the challenge has always been access. And our aspiration, and we've stated this publicly, is to reach 20% of the insulin-dependent diabetics in the world. And to that end, we've actually already distributed over 2.2 billion doses of insulins to patients, as I said, over 60 countries. And over 3 million patients have been, our patient lives are something that we've touched with the biosimilars portfolio just in the year that's gone by, the fiscal year that's just gone by. We are working, of course, with institutions like the Clinton Health Access Initiative, the IDF, the India International Diabetes Federation, to see how we can, bring products to help alleviate the challenges that patients and those living with these debilitating disease face. So the question really then is, while companies like Biocon and others have been able to do this, can India really become the next hub of biotech innovation? And what is needed if we want to do this? Now, we've always known that India has been the pharmacy of the world. It's been called that sometimes in a disparaging way, and sometimes in a very encouraging way, to say that that's the difference that India has made. And I want to take you through what the world has been doing before we look inwards. Here are some of the examples of what countries across have been doing, and we've picked examples of countries which are looking to consolidate their lead in terms of innovation and research that they've been doing. United States, for example, has had several small companies being supported through multiple initiatives, either through their assistance centers or through partnerships with major universities, in this case, Stanford. Germany has set up those technology parks, where they can work with industry directly. There are several other governments. We picked an example of Thailand, which have offered, tax incentives, import duty benefits, personal income tax waivers to attract talent. Countries like Ireland have set up grants to support companies in specific areas, particularly science and technology. And 70% of what they've actually funded are medtech companies. So clearly, there is this awareness where governments across the world have focused on encouraging research and innovation. Well, at home, Niti Aayog themselves, at our end, we've estimated that that India themselves, at our end, we have a huge biotech potential. And that in 2019 was estimated at 63 billion with an expected annual growth rate of 11%, which would then take us by 2025 to $102 billion in terms of our biotech output. And that would be a fifth of the global biotech market. And that's in the next 4 to 5 years. And that's not very difficult to envision already, because, and I think the example that I would like to share is again closer to the events of the recent past in terms of the vaccines and Serum Institute. And I just take an example here, and this graphic shows you that there are major players like GSKs and the Sanofis of the world, and you have Serum Institute here, which has over 30% or around 30% of the world's vaccine manufacturing capability. That's the single largest manufacturer of vaccines in the world. So that's what India has, and that's the capability that we've got as a country. We've exported over 66 million doses to 95 countries in the year gone by. And if you just look at what impact we've had, is just phenomenal. So clearly there is no doubt about the capability of the Indian pharmaceutical industry, the Indian biotech industry, or the Indian vaccine industry or thereabouts. So clearly, there has been, while I talked about what governments across the world are doing, and then what are the examples of industries that have made a huge difference in recent times. I quoted example of Serum, and what is the government machinery encouraging the industry to do? And just like the others, we've also got a set of initiatives that help build this collaboration through a mix of tax incentives, funding through the Department of Biotechnology and BIRAC, the production-linked incentive scheme for biopharma has been remarkable, with over 21,000 crores being made available to companies in this space. Incubators and accelerators like the Venture Center, which has organized this, and we heard the number of companies and startups that they've supported is just phenomenal. So clearly we have the framework in place. We've got the will, the vision, and the intent to get it all going. So if you look at what is then needed to see that we become a major player in this space and create that hub of innovation, so that companies are not hesitant to make those investments in research and development. Where can there be more collaboration? I've listed 4 points here where we could talk at length at different forums, but clearly research-linked incentives, which means for those companies which are investing in research and aiming at those so to say moonshots, as we call them, things that may or may not succeed. If the government were to support this, then it kind of encourages and builds a culture of innovation. That is what we are looking at, so that there is a whole ecosystem which is looking to think differently than just immediate returns. The second thing is to foster a great collaboration network across the the entire setup, and that's including research which begins in academia, large pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, the incubators, the startup organizations, and the hospitals which need to take these trials forward. The third area that we could do more about is accelerate our regulatory pathways and see if we can reduce the complexity in trying to bring products to the market. Could there be a faster path to seeing that we are able to make a risk-based decision to move on basis of science? Can we make a decision to move things faster so that patients can access life-saving drugs at a more affordable price sooner than what they've been doing in the past? The fourth thing would be, of course, to build human capital over time, and this is something that will have to be invested over the years, whether it is in academia or whether it is through funding in industry, to make sure that we groom the right talent, the next generation of resources, so that we can make a difference as an organization. We do have the demographics in our favor. It's a matter of guiding them in the right direction. So in short, if I were to summarize what would be my take on this, and then I would say that there is clearly a more balance that is needed as we try to kind of bring more sanity to the inequitable access to treatment, both quality of therapy as well as the access between the middle and high income countries and the low income or low and middle income countries. I believe that innovation can be meaningful only if its benefits can be made accessible to all, or at least to most who are in need of those. And India, of course, has been the pharmacy of the world for several years, and I take that as a big compliment that we've served the world and millions of patients across. And we also have the potential now to lead the biotech innovation, and I've cited examples of companies which are showing the way. Innovation-friendly policies, and I talked about what is listed here, what the government is already doing, but a stronger collaboration, an easier regulatory regime would foster a recipe which would be key to success. So these would be my key messages and a key takeaways from why innovation should be affordable, and if it is, then can make a global impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very wonderful talk, and thanks for sparing your valuable time. So I don't see any questions by the participants in the chat box. Dr. Premnath?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
I wanted to specifically ask you about your perspectives and outlook regarding biologics, especially in the context of the fact that Biocon has done both biogenerics and also innovative molecules. Like, I think Itolizumab is your, I don't know if it was the first one, but it is probably, very early one of yours. So can you share your perspectives and outlook on how India should be going about strategizing in terms of biogenerics versus innovative biologics, and what do you think is likely to happen, and what would be the role of partnerships in how things develop in the future?
So maybe there are probably in your one question there are 3 or 4, but let me try and answer them one after the other. So just a quick clarification: our first novel or our first biologic of monoclonal antibody that we brought to the market was a novel drug, and that was Nimotuzumab, which was Biomab EGFR. That's the product that we launched in 2006-07, and that was for head and neck cancer.
Okay.
Itolizumab we've launched subsequent to that. It's for psoriasis, as I said. Now, I think the question that you asked was, what is the role of partnerships in development of this? I think partnerships will play a huge role, regardless of the size of an organization, to bring in complementary capabilities whether it is areas that you do not have in terms of capabilities and skills, or whether even if you are a fully integrated organization like ours, you can also have a partnership with a company. Like, for example, we've partnered with Sandoz recently, where both companies have end-to-end capabilities. Both companies can bring product to the market from the lab to the market. But we've partnered because you definitely have then more shots on goal, as they say. So clearly you have more opportunities to make a difference in that space. I think there was another question that you asked in that one question of yours was how would you look at innovative or novel drugs versus biosimilar molecules? Now, clearly there is a space for both, and there is an appetite that companies have for both. There is a life cycle which is very different. The investment horizon, as well as the appetite for that is expected to be very, very different. In case of the biosimilars, the focus is mostly on the CMC development, on understanding the analytical characterization of the molecule, developing it. Your chances of success are high because you are aware that the molecule works, and hence the probability of success is higher. In terms of the novel drugs, you're clearly in a space where the clinical development plays a much bigger role. The regulatory path plays a much bigger role to see that that you have success in that space. The gestation period and the investment range as you try to bring these products to patients are also very, very different. And you could be talking about, say, just to give you an example, a small molecule generic would cost you anywhere around $5 million or less in development. If you were to go to an insulin or an insulin analog, you would be talking about $50 million of development expenses. And then if you move to a biosimilar monoclonal antibody, you would be talking of in the region of $150 million. Now, if you look at a novel product, you could probably be looking at $700 to $800 million. So there's a very big difference in terms of what you're looking at, and probably also difference in the time horizon to develop these molecules. I don't know if I answered your questions, but I tried to remember.
But do you think we have the appetite for it in India for novel biologics and the financial depth?
We certainly do have the capability, but it depends on each organization, and that's where I said that to the last couple of slides that I presented, that's where there is a role for the government machinery to play, to allow for these moonshots, because some of this will be those moonshots which you are not sure whether it will work or not. So those need to be funded. I'm taking an example of the COVID situation today, where the US government, for example, which funded companies developing that product fully, even through a buyback agreement. So clearly some of these assurances can help foster that culture of innovation and encourage more companies and academia to kind of take these risks in a more balanced manner.
Sure. Thank you. Over to you, Smita.
Thank you, Shreyas Tambe, for answering that. We see there are a lot of questions in the chat box, so we will compile them and take them later offline, because Mr. Shreyas Tambe has a hard stop and would be leaving and would not be continuing. So a kind request to all the panelists today, all the speakers, to kindly turn on their video for a quick group photo, and then we will continue with our program.
Request only panelists to turn on their video. Participants, please turn your videos.
Can we have 2 photographs, one with only speakers and then all the participants? Kind request.
Yeah.
Are we done, Neha?
Yes.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Tambe, for sparing your valuable time and joining us. We look forward to your presence in future events too. Thanks. Thanks to the whole Biocon Biologics team also for joining us. I hope some of you will be staying back. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Best
Thank you very
wishes.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah. We now move on to the second section of our program. So we have a panel discussion planned. So this panel discussion is planned to reinforce, the India's ability to develop and commercialize technology by showcasing and showcasing the experience sharing of our indigenous first in India developed technologies and products by our venture center supported startups. So I welcome all the panelists for today's panel discussion. I will now quickly introduce all our panelists, and then we will start with a small presentation by each panelist about their startup and their journey, and then we'll start with the question and answers. Yeah. So our first panelist for today is Dr. Jayant Khandare. He is the Managing Director and CSO of Actorius Innovations and Research Private Limited. He's done his bachelor's and master's degree in pharmacy, and he received a PhD in polymer chemistry in chemical engineering from NCL Pune in 2003. Post PhD, he completed 2 postdoctoral tenures in the School of Medicine, Wayne State University, Detroit, USA, and the Department of Pharmaceutics, Rutgers, the State University, New Jersey, USA. He has worked extensively on targeted nanopolymeric drug delivery systems for cancer. His excellent work resulted in him being awarded the prestigious Alexander von Humboldt Experienced Researcher Award and he worked for 1 year in Germany with Professor Dr. Rainer Haag at Free University Berlin, Germany in the field of macromolecular chemistry. He then established and led the polymer chemistry group at Pyramid Life Sciences. So with this short introduction, I welcome you. I welcome our next panelist, Dr. Aditya Ingal Halikar. He is well-published spine biomechanist with multiple patents to his credit. He has had a decade-long stellar career in the global spinal implants industry. Prior to founding his startup, that is India's Medical Solutions, he was director of product development at Globus Medical, the 5th largest spinal implants company in the world. He has extensive experience in taking products from concept to commercialization in the highly competitive and innovation-driven global spinal implants market. He's a mechanical engineering, he's done mechanical engineering and has done MS and PhD in biomedical engineering with a focus on spine biomechanics from the University of Iowa City, USA. Welcome, Aditya. Our next panelist today is Mr. Shailendra Kaude. He's promoter and chairman, MyLab Discovery Solutions Private Limited. He co-founded MyLab and is instrumental in setting the vision of the company. With more than 15 years of experience in the life science industry, he has a deep understanding of changing techno-commercial dynamics of life science, diagnostic, and pharma industry. Welcome you, Shailendra. Our next panelist for today is Ravindra Patel. He's CEO and founder of Omni BRX Biotechnologies Private Limited. He's a bioprocess specialist. He has 10+ years of enriched experience in cell culture techniques and process development. He's worked on suspension cultures, culture in disposable devices, and in stirred bioreactors. He's well-versed in the operations and troubleshooting of various bioreactors up to the 200-liter scale. So with that brief introduction, I welcome you, Ravindra. And our next panelist is Mr. Nouriel Pezarkar. So Mr. Nouriel is founder and CEO of Noble Exchange Environment Solutions. He's a member of the CII Committee on Modern Biofuels. Since 2014, he has been championing the cause of compressed biogas in India, and the groundwork done by him over past 7 years have paved way for national policy making regarding use of anaerobic digestion technology for food-based processing. Prior to founding Noble Exchange, Nouriel has been involved in 2 startups, both market leaders in their sector, and has over 15 years prior experience working with healthcare and hygiene industry in India and international markets. Nouriel is a commerce graduate and PG in business management from University of Mumbai. I welcome you, Nouriel, for this panel discussion. So as I mentioned, we'll be starting with a short presentation from each of our panelists, and then we will start with the Q&A. So first I request Dr. Khandare, kindly share your screen and start with your presentation.
While Jayant is getting started, let me welcome you from my side as well. As you know, we are all very, very proud of all of you and for all your achievements. Yes, including you, Nuriel. Yeah, no, but really amazing work by all of you, and we're very happy to have you here telling us a little bit about since all of you are role models for all our startups, do share a little bit of personal insights as well. Yeah.
We can see your screen. We can start. Yeah. Dr. Khandare, can we go full screen and then start?
Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yes.
now you are. Yeah.
Right. Greetings, everybody. Dr. Premnath, we miss you meeting in NCL Venture Center. So thanks for taking this, Innovation Center to the extreme to call us, actually invite us today for our contribution in this event as an innovator and in entrepreneurship. So OncoDiscover is a technology which is a liquid biopsy technology which offers a precision-based decision making to the oncologist, and we feel very proud that we got a medical devices approval for accounting circulating tumor cells from the epithelial cancers of solid tissue origins, and we are India's first medical device in this space and probably a second company in the world to have this technology. And we have been funded by BIRAC, and we were incubated at NCL Venture Center. As I mentioned, that we feel very proud and humble that we are India's first DCGI approved developed test, and that all started our journey in 2013 at NCL Venture Center. We have this comprehensive web page where we have all the details of the technology, and we also feel proud that this is most specific and most efficient tool today that is being offered to the oncologists, and many oncologists in India and abroad are using actually our technology, and we have the fastest PAT turnaround time with most affordable and accessible technology in the cancer diagnostic space. I still remember a day, it was 9 September 2019, when Honorable Minister Dr. Harshavardhan inaugurated. And I still remember our NCL Venture team invited us to join here, especially Priya, Smita, and Dr. Manisha. And we feel as an very, very proud that our health minister, who probably was the best scientist or a doctor to actually inaugurate this. We had great coverage in Times of India for a simple test that can detect cancer, spread very early, and it was supposed to hit in September. Yes, we launched this technology. We have been wonderfully supported by Government of India, DBT. And without the support, I don't think so we would have been an entrepreneur. And we have tried to meet India's unmet need in cancer diagnostic space. The procedure of this technology is very simple. Patient reaches to hospital or oncologist. Oncologist find a space as a liquid biopsy in staging cancer patient. And the utility of this is to actually monitor the response, monitor early diagnosis of a spread of a cancer. Also, actually, it can look for a minimal residual disease. We need very small volume of a blood as an invasive tool. We need about 5 ml of a blood after the prescription of a test. We do get blood samples from all over India, as I mentioned. We have partnered with a company called as Core Diagnostics. The blood sample reaches to our lab. Today, we have about 10 samples from Tata Memorial Hospitals and 5 other commercial samples. We have our proprietary patent for enrichment of this circulating tumor cells, which are very, very low in numbers. They find 1 in billion of other circulating cells, natural cells. We have an atomized tool, which is with the help of fluorescence microscope, and we have programs which can detect the circulating tumor cells through the analysis, and we make a report and send it to the patient or the hospital or the oncologist online. We feel very proud that we do file several patents. Nowadays, we file patent through our US counterpart with our new branch in California. We have been publishing many papers. One slide quick here, that these are the circulating tumor cells from cancer patient, and this is a liquid biopsy, which is an in vitro diagnostic test that can detect very rapidly circulating tumor cells from the peripheral blood of cancer patients. We also are very glad that India caters largest number of head and neck cancer patients in the numbers of 3 lakhs, according to one of the statistics. We know that 2020 cancer data has been just out. About 19.3 million cases were accounted. That is 7% rise over to 2018, and 10 million deaths were accounted in 2020. And this number is increasing and predicted number of incidences in 2040 would be close to 29 million cases per year. And India, fortunately, the lowest incidences rate is about 10%. And as I mentioned, that the head and neck cancer is the most prime disease in this area for the Indians, and very less research is being conducted. And here is a ball catching clinical trial, world's largest study that we know with best of our information. On the right-hand side graph, you can account circulating tumor cells. More the number of circulating tumor cells, more than 13. The overall survival probability that can be predicted is now accounted, which could be about 19 months. We feel very proud that few of the oncologists, they have been using this tool. To name here Dr. Nirmal Raut from Mumbai, who practices in suburb of Mumbai, recently tweeted that he could find the early metastasis in one of his case, where probably he had no other significant accounts of metastasis through the circulating tumor cells. He took this patient for MRI, and he could find a hepatic or a liver metastasis. And this is now posted worldwide. It's truly a make in India. We feel proud that government of India and DBT in particular and BIRAC has been very supportive to Actuaria's innovation in bringing OncoDiscover tool as a liquid biopsy to the patients who cannot afford otherwise very expensive tool. And I'm very glad that not only in the circulating tumor cells, but we are now getting into the genomics, we are getting into the mutations, and we have a very high, big tie-ups with an American companies, and we'll announce that very soon, which will make all of us more proud further. Thank you. Over to you, Smith.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kandari. I now request our next panelist, Mr. Nuriel Pezarkar, to kindly present his screen and start with his presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, one second, just on the slideshow. Yeah. Pleasure to be here on this platform. Dr. Saab, thank you so much for all the support and encouragement. Quickly just running through.
You're not on full screen yet, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am on full screen.
But we can't see it actually.
Okay, maybe you can just expand the screen, your slide a little bit using the percentage at the bottom.
Yeah.
Do you have an extension and do you have two screens by any chance, or?
No.
Neha,
do you want to run the presentation from your end?
Neha has it?
I have it. I'll do it. Give me a minute.
I can do.
Yeah. Yeah, just give me a minute.
Wrong slides, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, so just spend some time talking about this, the whole concept that we've taken to the market, which is city waste to city transport or sustainable transport. Neha, next slide, please. So what we basically do is our focus is clearly on the food waste fraction from municipal solid waste streams. As a company, we've stayed focused on metro cities and creating a solution around food waste using anaerobic digestion as a platform, as a technology, further upgrading that gas to 95-96% purity, where it is good to replace conventional fossil fuels or CNG for transport sector. At this stage, it is called bio-CNG or compressed biogas. And what it really does is create impact on both the sides. On the input side, when waste is received and eliminated from being disposed in unscientific landfills, there is a significant environmental impact in the form of groundwater, soil, air pollution. And of course, when you process and make compressed biogas and replace fossil fuels, then there is another sustainable long-term impact in terms of reducing the use of fossil fuel for combustion purposes or transport purposes. Next slide, please. So our facility in Pune, we've got 2 plants. Bangalore is about 6 months away from commissioning. Pune has a installed capacity to process about 350 tons of food waste, primarily collected from bulk generators like star hotels, restaurants, marriage halls, APMC market yards, modern retail. This converts into about 16 to 17 tons of compressed biogas on a daily basis, about 70 tons of organic manure, and about 180 cubic meters of nutrient-rich water, which goes back into the agricultural sector and replaces the use of chemical fertilizers. Next slide, Neha. So in a nutshell, if you really look at what we are doing is, we're cutting short the fossil fuel cycle, and we're taking this unique renewable fuel cycle, which is processed within 6 to 8 months max, and eliminating both the landfill as well as the fossil fuel use. Next slide, please. Just to cut a focus on why transport as a sector, look at the statistics, and transport is basically driven with urban city needs, both public as well as private transport. This particular sector contributes more than 23% of the total emissions of CO2 in the world. And more than 98% of the energy needs of the transportation sector are met currently through the petroleum products. You take both of these matrices into play, and then go back and fall back on the strong, proven, robust technology, anaerobic digestion, which is microbiology, basically breaking down solids from the food waste and converting that into energy. So our focus on this sector, specifically with the urban cities and creating a resilient infrastructure, has paved way for what was said earlier, to make policies and drive this as a program through urban cities in India. Today, we have also been contacted in the past couple of months. We're looking at cities from Southeast Asia, Middle East, especially cities and countries which are strongly committed towards the sustainability development goals, are wanting to replicate this model in their metro cities, doing exactly what we've done in Pune, which is to take food waste from the city and replace fossil fuel for the city transportation needs. Next slide, please. So if you look at this in a matrix, and what really gets the imagination is when we start putting quantifiable matrices, it's not just demonstrable, but measurable. And the measurement matrices are on all fronts, which is what is the impact that the waste creates, what's the impact that the main product, which is CBG, creates, and then what's the impact that organic manure creates on the agricultural sector. And each one of these are matrices that keep building month on month, year on year. If you just look at Pune and Pimpri-Chinchwad as a base, which is talking about 350,000 tons of food waste available every year, we're not saying this is all 100% available, but there is significant movement from policy to segregate this waste at source and this is just the municipal solid waste stream, does not include, let's say, for example, the post-expiry products. It does not include the APMC market waste, etc. So numbers swell up, but this can clearly replace about 130,000 barrels of crude, and equivalent numbers for the chemical fertilizers used in agricultural sector. Next slide, please. So what this basically does is it aligns the whole technology platform with very strong global agendas like the sustainability development goals. If you look at it from an Indian context, then it starts with the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan at the national level, cuts down to the smart city, sustainable city initiatives across 100 cities in the country today, goes into the organic farming, which is now picking up momentum and becoming a very strong culture across many countries in the world that we are seeing. It also cuts through the need for sustainable transport and creating sustainable infrastructure, resilient infrastructure for cities, and gives back at multiple touch points. So the two important things that we wanted to demonstrate and bring to the attention of entrepreneurs on this platform: technologically viable, financially feasible, if both, and socially acceptable. If these three matrices are really put together and packaged, then you have a proposal that can cut through the long red tape or the bureaucratic red tape and convert itself into a viable proposition which can be taken to a very larger scale. Next slide, please. So that was a quick introduction on the platform for what Noble Exchange is really attempting to do and what we have done till now. Thank you so much, and we'll take question answers in the session. Thanks, Neha. Over to you.
Thank you, Nuriel. I now request our next panelist, Mr. Shailendra Kavre, to kindly present his screen and start with his presentation.
While Shailendra is putting his slides up, Nuriel, pioneering work, being the first in India to demonstrate such a thing. Now, of course, everybody is riding the bandwagon, but I mean, it's a tough job being the pioneer. So well done. Yeah. Shailendra.
You've seen us closely and bore some of the brunt of our adventure along the process. Once again, thank you so much for just being there.
Shailendra, over to you. Shailendra, you're on mute. Okay, Shailendra seems to have been having some small problem with his microphone.
Yeah, looks like that.
Can I suggest one thing, Smita?
Yeah.
Maybe
We'll
you can
move
figure
on.
this out.
Yeah.
Shailendra, can you just give it a shot in terms of figuring out the microphone in the meantime? Yeah, please.
I now request our next panelist, Mr. Ravindra Patel, to kindly start sharing his screen and present the presentation.
Yeah. Shailendra, can you unshare, please, for a moment?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Screen is visible?
Yes.
Can you be a little louder? Yeah. Or closer to the mic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good evening now. So my name is Ravindra Patel, and I'm a founder and CEO of OmniBRX Biotechnologies. Just a minute. Yeah. Okay. So we OmniBRX are a bioprocess engineering company, and we manufacture single-use bioreactors. So probably we are the India's first single-use bioreactor manufacturing company, and the world's first technology to produce vaccines and other biologics, which are manufactured by adherent cell culture technologies. So we are we have the world's first technology, which is scalable, affordable, and efficient at the same time, all three characteristics. So our application, the product application is majorly for vaccine manufacturing, for viral vector production, for cell and gene therapies, and also for few of the biotherapeutics. Problems, as I mentioned, the other and cell culture problems which we solve is the lack of scalability, efficiency, and affordability. The product is proprietary, and it is being paid. Means we got the patent from many of the countries, and still other we are waiting for grant in few of the countries now. So the major advantage, or I would say the breakthrough thing, is like the cell BRX single-use bioreactor system can offer up to 90% cost reduction in the large-scale bioprocessing when they are switching to this technology from other technologies which are available in the market. I'll go through the technical details. Like if you are in a field of biologics manufacturing or biosimilar manufacturing, you will be probably understanding the importance of upstream manufacturing platforms or upstream production technologies. So basically, where we grow host cells in a very high density, in a very large volume, and then these cells will produce biologics or produce vaccines or viruses or another proteins and all. So more cells you have, probably more viruses or protein will be produced in a very straightforward. So that's what the scale up means. Particularly for vaccines, most of the cell lines are adherent, so they need surfaces to grow and keep more growing and growing. So basically, you accommodate more surfaces in a unit volume, more scale up can be possible. The right side, there are five dominant technologies which are available in the market from last 40 to 50 years. And the major problem with this technology, few of them are still in a bioreactor platform also, but these all five technologies, they have a very common problem of scale up. So it cannot these technologies cannot scale up to certain level, and that's where the industry was facing the problem. I was working with the few of the companies, and I faced that problem when we were operating the instruments and processing the technologies in a larger scale. So if we compile if we tabulate the parameter wise these technologies versus our innovation, so the scalability is the major one. There are no other technologies which can be scalable. Yes, we have provided the scalable, most scalable version around the globe. The surface area for the cell growth, if you compare, like maximum surface area which anyone can get was 500 meters square or 790 meters square. In our 200 liters lbrx single use bioreactors, we are providing 1500 meters square of surface area, more than 3 times or double of the industry bottleneck. At the same time, the dynamic, I mean, the product single-use bioreactor or bioreactors, they also ensure very high mixing and mass transfer efficiency. So these are very efficient in growing high-density cells, and even though they are accommodating more surface area in that. It is very easy to handle, and the equivalent units, because this is surface area to surface area comparison. If you see, the 1 unit of product is equivalent to multiple units of other technologies, and that bring down the cost of manufacturing drastically. This is a few shots of product, how actually it looks like. This is actually a final product, but initially there were many iterations when we were developing the product, like from scratch, because we are first in India, as I mentioned. There was no reference product for us, and as such the technology was new. So from the imagination point of view, everything has to be on table. And there was, I think, 8 to 10 iterations we have done in the product design and in the other formats, and then finally this design has came out as a product. The larger image is showing the 50 liter and 200 liter bioreactor system. So it's a very compact and low footprint design. It can be accommodated in a small volume of the small area in the facility, and gives a very high input in terms of virus titer or in terms of productivity. So from R&D to manufacturing scale, we have developed many of the versions of the technology. Like we have a smaller capacity bioreactor, then we have pilot scale capacity bioreactor of 5-liter scale, and then the actual manufacturing can be can happen using the 50-liter or 200-liter bioreactor by the biopharmaceutical industries. Till date, we have sold more than 45 bioreactor systems, and around the globe, they've installed production of 300, more than 300 SUB single-use bioreactors, and we are supplying our product to the world's largest vaccine manufacturing companies. Like if you see our customer base, most of the customers are very well known in the vaccine manufacturing industry, so they are pioneer in that. Indian Immunologicals, Biological E, Panisha, the Serum Institute of India in Pune, IBI, Korea, Bharat Biotech. So these and most of these companies, they are in a COVID vaccine manufacturing. We are very fortunate, and we are proud of that. Like our technologies are also being used and being evaluated in the COVID vaccine scale up task. The recognition and rewards still, since we are a venture center incubator from very initial days when we were developing the product at a pilot scale from 5-liter scale, we got the BIG grant approval from BIRAC at the first as a first funding input. Then we also got TIFAC approval for it's a loan, I would say, the subsidized SIDBI loan. And then NBM, we got NBM National Biopharma Mission grant for 2.2 CR. It is for developing a higher scale version of our bioreactor systems. And we also have a LEAF fund investment from the venture center. So we are very fortunate and very proud for this. So as a advice, or as a benchmark for my journey, if I say, like there is no such moment like in the product development, real product development phase, like you develop the entire product, means a full-fledged product, and then to go to the customer, then the customer validates it, and that product will be then manufactured, marketed in the market. So that it's a sequential process. So version by version, you have to start approaching the customers, the actual users of the product. When they use it, they give some suggestions, then you again improvise it and bring them a good product, means user friendly products and all. And then again, that's why there will be iterations which drives the best product for the market. That's what my my feeling and my experience says. And of course, in the space of bioprocessing, and particularly in the biotech in the industry, the investment requirement is very high. So you probably have to arrange for that also at the same time. So it is exciting journey what we had as a OmniBRX. Now we are more than 30 people in a team, and we are supplying our bioreactors around the globe. So yeah, thank you, Dr. Smita.
Yeah, glad to hear your story. Now I request our next panelist, Mr. Shailendra, to kindly start presenting his screen.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah. Yeah, your screen is visible. You can start.
Visible. Okay. So I have not many slides to show, but I will try to explain more about MyLab Discovery Solutions. So basically, we started as a company as a small technological startup which was spinned out from the trading company. So we were all from the marketing background, from the sales background, and so. And then we started to have a small lab in Baner with the vision that we will make something which is unique to India and which will be, which is actually a lacuna in Indian diagnostic industry. So our vision was always to have something which is accessible to masses, low in the price, but highest in the quality, and scalable. So this is the vision with which we started the company. And in 2016, we started with a small lab in Baner area. And then in 2020, we came out with the test, which is our first success, which was called as NAT test, nucleic acid testing. And then from there, we start rolling out the products. We had a factory in Lonavala, and with this COVID, we were the first Indian company to have a real-time PCR test in India. We had another feather in our cap, which was with the antigen kit. And the third one is basically the home test kit, which was launched. So basically, if you see us, we are a team of all young, enthusiastic technocrats and people from the market. We are not, I will not say that we are into a very high throughput or high, I will say intensive research, but we are trying to find out the solutions to the problems which India is facing. I will come to the products one by one. This is the compact Excel system, which is basically the first of its kind system in India, wherein you can do DNA, RNA extraction, you can do PCR setup, and in future you will be doing real-time PCR inside it only. So this is the one of a kind machine all over the world. There is no machine as such at this throughput available across the globe. After that, we have different series of the kits, which is like we call it Discover series, wherein we basically these are the GMO kits and all. Then OncoScreen, which is based on cancer detection. PathoDetect, which is basically all virus and bacterial detection. AgroDesk, which is important for agricultural scientists or agricultural lab. VetScreen, which are useful for animal husbandry. And NatSpert, which I have shared with you, the NAT testing. So that is all. And the last product which we have just launched, and it's of its own kind, is the COVID-19 rapid antigen test for home-based use. So this is the first Indian kit which is available in the market right now, and it is in great demand, as you all know. So basically, this is about us. We are into the products which are small but impactful.
Thank you very much, Shailendra. I now request the next panelist, Dr. Aditya Engelhalikar, to kindly start sharing his screen. Mr. Shailendra, request you to kindly stop sharing your screen.
Yes.
Yeah, over to you, Aditya.
Thank you, Smita. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Please.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Premnath, and thanks for inviting me onto this panel. So my name is Dr. Aditya Engelhalikar. I'm the founder and CEO of India's Medical Solutions. About India's is one of the first spinal implants company developing end-to-end solutions from innovative spinal implants, which are long-term implantable devices for treating different pathologies of spinal disorders, going right from skull to the lower back, and also an AI-driven platform for the treatment of spinal disorders. Our vision is to become the preeminent AI-driven complex spinal surgical solutions company. And we have divided our pathologies or the clinical problems in primarily two buckets. One is related to pediatric scoliosis, wherein the human spine, it's a genetic disorder that afflicts kids, and primarily it is seen more in girls versus in boys. It is called early onset scoliosis in the age groups up to from 7 to 10 years. And then in adolescent patients, it is called adolescent idiopathic scoliosis. So we are developing patented technologies to address problems that are associated with current treatments. Second bucket in terms of spinal disorders that we are addressing is related to adult spine disorders. And there are different disorders of the spine ranging from aging related degeneration to tumor of the spine, trauma, adult deformities related to postures, as well as degeneration of muscle tissue and of the spine. And then the fifth one is tuberculosis, which is very common in India. To address these clinical problems, our solutions that we are addressing. So we are taking an end-to-end view. We are not just an implant company. We have metamorphosized ourselves into a diagnostics aspect also, wherein we want to be able to help our customers who are the neurosurgeons or orthopedic spine surgeons in terms of accurate diagnosis of the spinal disorders, to surgical planning when they go into surgery, and then delivering the therapeutics, which is the implants that go inside the body. So we kind of have developed or divided our products into three buckets. One is where we are developing, as I said, for pediatric scoliosis, we are developing something called as non-fusion scoliosis correction technologies. For example, today's treatment involves these kids have deformities of the spine where the spine is curved. And today's technology involves either surgically going in every 6 months for a period of 6 years into these kids, implanting rods, and then every 6 months they have to undergo a surgery. Distraction surgery is what it's called. And then there is another technology, which is a magnetic driven technology, where you use outside magnets to grow these rods. But in both cases, it is the surgeon who decides how much the kid should grow. Whereas we believe that these implants should be patient specific. So what we are doing in this space is we are developing patient-specific implants, which once implanted into the body, over the period of 5 years or 6 years, the spines basically, the product or the growing rod grows along with the spine as the child grows. That is a novel technology that we are developing. We already have 2 patents, 1 US patent, 1 India patent, and 8 patents are pending in this space. The second bucket we call as spinal fusion technologies, wherein the primary treatment for all spinal disorders is associated with pain of the spine. And the main goal is to going in and stabilizing the instability that is there in the spine, and right from the skull to the lower back. So we have different technologies that we have developed. It's a so we are a kind of multi-product portfolio company in that sense. And we have got almost 5 products which are US FDA approved, which we are the first and only spinal implants company in India which has US FDA clearance for our products, and we are competing with global technologies in India, as well as we are exporting these technologies to the US as well. And then the third bucket that we are developing as a big part of our R&D is an AI-based platform for providing diagnostic and surgical planning solutions for our implants, essentially. So in terms of intellectual property and certifications, as I said, we have got 10 patents we have applied to. 2 have been granted, US and India, and 8 are pending. That also involves Japanese as well as EU patents as well, in addition to India and US patents. We have got regulatory clearances. We are a US FDA registered company. We have got ISO 13485 certified certification and clearance for our company. And we are a proud BIRAC grantee and a proud member of the Venture Center family. We have got the BIG grant 3 years back. We had it, and now we have the BIPP grant also. And we are a India CDSCO, which is a DCGI licensed manufacturer for manufacturing and selling of spinal implants in India. In terms of, just the last snapshot of, so our journey from being Atmanirbhar and going from Vigyan to Vikas. The first in India tag, I mean, is India's first and only company with US FDA approved spinal implants, helping treat patients in India as well as the United States. And we do plan to expand ourselves in other countries. Innovation wise, we have a unique combination of spinal implants and AI-based platform for treatment of spinal disorders. IP portfolio, as I already mentioned, we have got 2 patents granted and have 8 pending. Global regulatory success, we have US FDA approved products for 5 of our product lines. In terms of clinical validation, our products have been used. We have sold more than 10,000 implants to date now over the last 2.5 years. And our products have been used to treat more than 1,000 patients now. This involves India as well as the United States. Global market presence, as I said, we are in India as well as US. And our founding team, and we are great. All of this we have been able to achieve because we have a proven and successful team over here, operating R&D and manufacturing team in India, leading the global operation. So that's about who we are. Thank you very much. That's our team right there. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Aditya. Yeah. Thank you to all our panelists for a wonderful presentation about their innovation story. I now move on to our second section, that is question and answers. So we have some questions, and I also request participants to kindly post their questions for our panelists. We'll take them up. My first question is, we all were talking about, we are aiming at India's bioeconomy reaching $100 billion by 2025. So there, using your own startup case, what do you feel that how you have contributed and you will continue to contribute to the Indian bioeconomy at the large? So maybe I'll request Dr. Kandare to go first.
Oh, that's a wonderful question, which actually is always intriguing. But I think as a researcher, as a technologist, as an innovator, one should first see how do you contribute to the society and typically to the patients, and especially in the unmet needs. So I think our own contribution over, not a monetary contribution, but I think the disease-based contribution is more imperative to actuarials. And if you do well, as Aditya and other team member mentioned, I think the financial contributions will definitely come. So first is an intellectual contribution, then there is an impact to the patient, and third is a financial contribution. So that's my take.
Thank you. Nuriel?
Just to reflect on the question from a specific point of view of what Nobel Exchange has been engaged and we've been trying to do. I think our largest impact was last year when, 2019, when the modern biofuel policy was formed, and it translated itself into a national program called SATAT, Sustainable Alternate to Affordable Transport, which is being driven by the Petroleum Ministry. And that has thrown upon the opportunity to create what has been now announced as an agenda by the government to create a network of 5,000 plants in the country, focusing on various different feedstocks. So bringing that into the system and creating a parallel economy to the conventional fossil fuel, petroleum-driven economy was, to our mind, the single largest impact point. And we're looking to do or replicate something similar with the organic manure.
Yeah, I think, Nuriel, one of the things which stands out is that when you got started, there were no believers. You know, there was hardly anybody who thought that you could do something useful with organic waste, or that even organic waste would be a large enough problem to worry so much about. Right? And look at the turn of events now, and look at how things have turned entirely. And clearly, somebody had to stay there long enough showing the way. And I think your company has done that, right? So that is a very big contribution, in my opinion. Policies don't emerge in vacuum. It is created when there are people who can show that it is possible, right? So I remember some years back, the late Isha Rahulwalia had written an article in the newspaper featuring Nobel Exchange as an early example of how urban waste should be managed. And that I think opened the eyes for many people around. And at the same time, I think the current government has taken a lot of interest in solving this problem. Of course, as every city in India knows, this is not a problem that they can sit on any longer, right? So it is actually something which is very, very important. And beyond the policy creation, also it is also about showing that this is actually possible. Right. And another thing I wanted to point out is that you are working in a very difficult domain. You have to deal with the governments of the world, right? Local governments, the large governments, and so on and so forth. And it is no joke trying to build a business in such an environment. And the fact that it is possible is also something which is very creditable as well. And a similar vein, if you look at what Jayant has done, I think, you need world beating technologies also. And it is important to be out there as role models to show that this is doable. I'm sure the faith of, say, an hospital like TMC, Tata Memorial Hospital, has increased multifolds in the abilities of our scientists and engineers to deliver those products. And I think that is a very important contribution as well, because I don't think they had done these kind of trials before, right? And for many of them, this was a opening which they could have not got if there was no Indian player doing it, actually building those technologies. And of course, it is a great example of nanotechnology at work. I don't think there are too many technologies which have demonstrated that in India, with real impact. So I think these are also important contributions as well. And these are important foundational contributions for the bioeconomy, opening doors, creating pathways, creating role models, and so on. So I think I think you guys were being too modest. So that's why I stepped in to speak a little bit. But I think so should Aditya. I think you should talk more about it also. And so should Ravindra and Shalendra. And Shalendra should go last, because I think they have really, created waves in this pandemic and shown that, startups are a force to reckon with. So, so that's great. So I think Aditya, you should speak next.
Thanks, Dr. Premnath. And you rightly said, Nuriel and Dr. Kandari, all of them are, laying the foundation. So some of the things that I wanted to point out, especially in our industry, as to how we are, I believe we are contributing, is that in our industry, up till now, there has been the segment, the customer segment, industry segment has always been dominated by imported product segments. And imported means great quality, and Indian means cheap and okay quality, or, okay to bad. Let's put it that way, unfortunately. So we don't want to get into the reasons for that. So I believe the way India is trying to change the game over here, and we have had our set of challenges as well, is that we are trying to bring an import alternative, wherein we are saying that we are an Indian player. You don't have to rely on all the time on, imported does not mean high quality. We can be an Indian player, and that way we are, India's is the first and only US FDA approved spinal implants company in India, where we are competing neck to neck with the global multinationals and offering great technologies to the Indian patients with all the R&D and manufacturing happening in India. That is number one. And number two, how we are changing as far as the export side also. Unfortunately, brand India, has been built in pharmaceuticals, but in the medtech space, brand India is pretty much zero to be built, and it is pretty much non-existent. If at all, it has a tag of, I've been to international investors, and when I pitch it as an Indian company, it is like, oh, it's everything is cheap, right? So cheap is kind of the mantra. Unfortunately, we have gotten used to. I appreciate what Dr. Tambe said, that affordability, but that affordability is a dichotomy in the global world, right? Because that becomes, unfortunately, at least in the medical devices space, it has a kind of impression of cheap, and cheap means bad quality globally. So what we are trying to do is that we are one of the first Indian companies where we are exporting made in India technologies into the United States, because US has a brand value, global brand value. US dominates, US market is 40% of the global medical devices economy, right? And if we are able to prove our products into the US market, then we are a force to reckon with. And that is how we see as brand India being built in the medical devices space, that it is not just about making cheap products. It is about innovating and having great technologies made, doing the right R&D, right quality, right manufacturing over here, and then exporting into the space. So in that way, we believe that India is contributing to the Indian bioeconomy in the India front as well as on the global front in building the brand.
Yeah. Over to you.
And that too in a very difficult domain. Yeah, spinal implants is sort of like the rocket science equivalent of medtech, right? If you want to say, this person is a rocket scientist, I think now you have to say it's a spinal biomechanist as an equivalent one. So, yes, Ravindra Patel, yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. If we talk about the biopharmaceutical space, what I would say is there is a huge scope lying there still, because in my 15 years of experience, what I observed is most of the technologies, not most, I think all of the technologies of the upstream, downstream, fill finish, they all are being imported in India. There was no, developer or no standard manufacturer in India, and there are 5 to 10 major companies. They are dominating in this space. Um, so it is very important, to take a deep dive in this space for us, being experienced in this domain. So we started with the vision of penetrating in the upstream cell culture technologies, but the downstream processing, the other areas also, we are yet to means we are here to explore. And I'm sure that there will be a other startups and companies, if they get proper encouragement and proper platform, they will be able to do a great innovation in this scope. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in a domain like yours, in biopharma, people really didn't think that, what a dent, say, reactors and media and all could make. It's actually COVID has sort of brought that into sharp focus, which nobody expected at all. And it's really important that we have all these tools available to us. So I think well done, Ravindra. Now, in fact, when so Ravindra has got a sharp business focus. One of the one of the when we work with a lot of scientists, entrepreneurs, and sometimes that's a rarity. So Ravindra is one of those who knows very sharply where he's headed. I think Shailendra probably
Yeah.
had to leave, if I'm not
Yes, yes.
mistaken.
He
Is that
has
so?
left the meeting. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We are
So,
checking.
but that said, I think just a couple of words about um, my lab. During the pandemic, I think my lab has brought out one after another firsts in the diagnostic space, right from the first approved RT-PCR kit to then the antigen kits, and now and the ones which are high throughput testing setups, and now also the home kits which have come up. It's fantastic to see that, and I think it was such a uplifting moment for all startups, science startups. When they got their approvals ahead of Abbott in the first round of approvals, and it is something which I think sort of gave a sense of what is possible in this country, and that was really remarkable. So, Smita, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Premnath, for stepping in place of Shailendra. Yeah, so I'll move on to my next question. So at Venture Center, we really feel very proud when we present that particular slide, which features all the first in India technology developers, all of you. So now I would like to know from you, how does it feels to be, first in India, make in India startup? And I'm sure there have been some advantages and some problem areas also, the pros and cons of being the first in India and make in India. So if you could just talk about that. So maybe this time, shall we reverse the order and start with Ravindra first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, there are certainly advantages, and there are certainly pain and a mental stress associated with that. I think the people who are already, they have used the technologies from US and Europe. They still think that, okay, the technologies coming from that region, they are far better in terms of the operational aspects and the quality and all. But we have proven to these people, like in a biopharmaceutical industry, that yes, if someone wants, they can build a great product in India as well. The only thing is, we have to take the that has to be zeal for that. Basically, that innovation potential has to be in a continuous mode. So that's what actually I would say this.
Yeah, I think perhaps Aditya can go next. He when he came back from the US, you know. Probably he had a different set of expectations and then got into the thick of things and is keeping on going ahead. So Aditya, you're next.
Thanks, Dr. Premnath. So yeah, definitely. I mean, being India's first startup in spine startup in many cases, one of the things is that we are very proud. But I would like to, for the sake of the audience, share the dichotomy of the pride and whether the pride has to be both ways, right? Pride has to be, you have to feel proud, and then the person opposite, especially the customer, should also feel the pride. So I would like to so one of the challenge that we had was that the pride is there, but the questions that when we hit into the market, right, the market is always something that always teaches you. So we had to unlearn and learn a lot of things, learn a lot of new things. So one of the things that we were faced when we went into the market, the first question that we used to get asked was, "Kiska copy kiya?" Because primarily, unfortunately, until now, majority of the Indian companies, it was a copy paste affair. Copy the imported high quality products, make them cheap and sell it at a cheap rate. So, and here we were investing, we are a BIRAC supported entity. We are investing into IP. We are investing a lot into R&D, right? And no less than what any other company is doing in the United States or in EU. But those were the questions. So, that was it hurts your ego, but you have to suck it up. And that is what it is. Some of the second part and the challenges that we faced was that, of course, R&D comes at a price. And that is what I always say. I mean, sometimes, and since we are all entrepreneurs, I'm always, sometimes I feel we talk about affordability just for the sake of affordability. Because how can you really, until you travel the journey, how do I know what the cost of my price is going to be? So as entrepreneurs, I mean, that is one of the things that we have made it, that if it is made in India, it has to be cheap. Of course, it has to be rightly priced in the market, because the goal is we want to increase, make it accessible more and more people. But one of the things is the questions that we face into the market are, Indian company hai, to tum itna mehenga kaise? Right? I mean, and that is after we are 40 to 50% cheaper than the imported product that they're buying. They're not used to Indian companies bringing in great quality and investing in R&D and then pricing it at a I call it growth oriented pricing. That's what I call it, and that is how companies should be pricing it. So those were the challenges that we faced, but then we learned the rope. It was always a tug of war in the market, but now we are a 2.5-year-old player in the market, and we believe we are creating a space wherein even this, because we understand that, right? I mean, the customer is not going to be kind to you. Customer is based on their own perceptions, and because they are human at the end of the day. So time is the most important part. As long as we can hang in there, keep on hammering the message, and we are seeing that turn now, wherein the customers are basically approving of our brand, and the brand is slowly getting built. That, hey, here's an Indian company, they're doing great work. Yes, it's expensive, but I think we can afford to pay that price. That kind of a change has been there. And there have been supporters, customers who supported us and this idea, who have also taught us how to market ourselves into the Indian market, right? So you get to learn both ways. You get to learn from your supporters, you get to learn from your detractors. So that's my experience, and how, of course, as we are proud, but then there is a dichotomy that we faced, but then we are overcoming that, and we are building our brand.
Well said, Aditya. Yeah, over to you, Nuriel.
Just adding to what Aditya and Ravindra said, of course, there's pride, and you take great. There's a sense of satisfaction in being the first. From a Noble Exchange point, I think our single largest challenge was when we started dabbling with waste and talking to policymakers, administrators, commissioners, etc. We realized that if we have to shake this, okay, we can't do something on a small scale. Okay, nobody would notice. Even if it worked, it won't tickle even the at the lowest level of decision making, won't be noticed. So So we had to hit this out of the stadium. We had to create an elephant just to get noticed, and for as an early startup to do that. I mean, we all come from backgrounds and our schools and our bringing up. We have always this very dramatic Hindi phrase, apni chaddar dekh ke pair pasaro type of a thing. But in this case, we not only went out of the chaddar, we broke the roof too. Yeah. So the challenge was, to create something at the scale in a market like India with multiple influencers and multiple level of policy making. You had to create something which was mammoth and which could be demonstrated that this can scale to a exponential potential for the country. So for us, that was the largest or the biggest challenge that we faced.
Yeah, thank you. Over to you, Dr. Kandare.
I think as a first time innovator, when we begin our journey, you have different mindset and different objectives. I think while we'll be the first, I think the approach of looking at innovation, translation, and resolving or solving some disease status is different. I think what I see is, the job of a researcher or a job of an innovator is also to actually accomplish something so that you help into early detections. So if you look, the current scenario is actually diagnosis in the cancer, then you treat and then you hope for the cure. So that is what actually, when we started our journey, we started representing as a diagnostic company in a cancer. So the conventional method of 10 years back or even until last 2 years back was to first detect it and then treat it and then hope for the cure. I think we now understand that we have to have a role in screening and then predicting and then preventing the disease. So the role of an innovator to stop, the status of a disease to actually enhance, not actually work after the disease is actually being in the prevalent state. So I think that's what I take, and it's very challenging. And roadmap that actually you set up, for example, in terms of an approval and the clinical trials, as Dr. Premnath mentioned, that that journey is difficult. But that's why what is the role of an innovator? And I don't think so that BIRAC screens people with a less this kind of an tenacity to go ahead. I think you will find the solutions, and all of us might have different principles of actually running the businesses, running the innovations. But actuaries we see first as a very important, and this is not only the once by a chance that will be first. I think eventually will be also first in many of the innovations in cancer's disease.
Thank you, Dr. Kandare. Now, one last question to all of you, and then maybe we'll take up some questions which are there in the chat box. So we all know that the journey has been very difficult. So I would just request every one of you to just point out one single important gap which you felt needs to be addressed during your journey, which you came across, which could have otherwise evened out your journey in some way. So maybe this time we'll start with Nuriel first. One gap which you came across and you feel that it would have been addressed in some other way, and that would have smoothened your journey.
Or even a gap today in the ecosystem that you think should be filled up.
Yes.
See, the space that we deal in is more in the public-private partnership kind of a domain. But when it comes to funding, it is primarily pushed or left to private sector funding, and there are challenges overlapping these two. And we've been talking about this at various levels, that maybe it's time that, since India is, or any growing country is looking to build a resilient infrastructure for the next generations, should look at financing this very differently. Definitely not the conventional banking and funding routes.
Yeah, and the same also is coming up now in public health. just like it is doing it as in waste, right? So yeah, good point. Yeah, let's move on. Next person, please. Jayant, do you want to go next?
I think there are many gaps. I think they continue to evolve because I think Aditya would know that in spite of you would have a permissions and all these approvals, the regulators are going to actually find the gaps, and you just have to run behind actually your resolving this in improving the quality. So one gap I think we cannot say about fundings or regulations or the clinical permissions. I think there are many gaps, and we have to actually work on multi gaps actually. So I cannot point out one gap. I think the only component that I would like to say that if you are an innovator, if you have an idea, I think the India probably caters the largest public funding taxpayers' money. So I think there is no gap from the funding from these agencies that at least we have seen.
Thank you. Ravindra Patel.
Yes, sir. In my view, means of course there are a lot of gaps in the regulatory point of view, even in the investment point of view for the startups and entrepreneurs. But very unique, gap. What I feel and what it can be solved by government agencies like you and by RAC and all. Like if a startups, if most of the time what happens is, and which is very painful for us also, is like we get a huge order because the product what we have is a high value product, and to make that product also demands a lot of investment in that. So if a startup they have, and most of the time it happens like we have the orders but we do not have money to
Execute the orders.
yes, execute that orders. And if we go as a startup, if we go to the banks and other agencies, like they do not, they ask for mortgage or other kind of securities and all this thing, and it takes a lot of time. Credit facilities are also not available for these startups. It is not suitable for these startups like CCs and ODs. So what I request, or I suggest, is you can ease, or you can bridge this gap. Like if a startup has a valid purchase order, they can ask some kind of support from government agencies, and then once the order has been executed, directly they can straightforward pass it that money to that money can be back to the government agency. That will actually help. It releases the pressure on the mind of the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, sure. We'll take this to the right people though. Yeah. Thanks. Aditya.
Thanks, Dr. Premnath. I agree with what both, primarily what Nuriel and Jayant mentioned, because those are the topics that I want to touch on. One is regulations wise, definitely the regulations in medical devices, it was nowhere in the past, but it has improved a lot. And what I call it is that our regulations should be such which should make us globally competitive. It's not about, of course, we want to make sure we launch safe products, effective products, but it should make us globally competitive, as mean the bar should be higher and it should be globally harmonized, essentially, because what is the state of your regulation also determines how good of a company you can become, especially in the medical devices space. And it should be at the same time allowing us ease of doing business, and all of those things also come into it. Second part is about funding. And I kind of jokingly say nowadays that if I had an app that a vada pav delivery app, I would get more money in India versus if I end developing innovative spinal implants. This is just a joke, nothing. But that has been our experience. See, I think it's a chicken or egg thing. Software services is so big in India. It's billions of dollars of industry, right? So for the investor, it is an easy and quick money generation opportunity versus a medical device space, long gestation period. पैसा आएगा तो 7 साल है, 10 साल है लगेगा. The way Dr. Tambe was also saying, the amount of money that needs to be poured in before you see. But to me, that is where the risk-taking mindset. It's not that there is no money in the country. There is plenty of capital in the country, but it needs to be deployed. And that has been, we blame the government, that the government is spending peanuts and they should be spending 5% of the GDP, but they're probably spending just 1.5%. Ayushman Bharat is slowly changing that. But in the private sector also, the investment in medtech is abysmal, right? We can't just be blaming the government, because if you scan all the entire environment, look at the US, look at EU, and those are the places we should be comparing ourselves, because it's a free country and democratic countries. Those are the ones whom we should be comparing to. The major money comes from the private sector. So our investor mindset should also come about, it's kind of being a bit spiritual about money. Gaya paisa to gaya, it's okay. That kind of a mindset of a high risk ability should be there. Investment should happen in medtech sector because it's a huge opportunity. I mean, if you look at the global medtech industry, right, there's plenty of money to be made. So it's about putting that money into that sector. But again, I think it's a chicken or egg as startups. If one of us becomes successful, then that becomes a role model and money starts to roll in also. So
yeah,
I guess.
And also it's a high risk high reward game, I suppose, but it also depends what constitutes high risk high reward. Also depends upon the alternative investment opportunities available. So as some of the lower risk, lower or hopefully those disappear, you as a country will not have much of an opportunity except to invest in those which are higher reward, right?
I mean, slowly
Yeah,
we are moving from fixed deposits to mutual funds and the stock market. So I guess that should happen. People will start investing in startups.
Sure. And the guys who got in early will be better off, right? Yeah, that's the story to tell. Okay, Smita, over to you.
Yeah, now we'll take up some questions which are there in the chat box. So the first question is for Ravindra for Omni BRX, that what IP have you have that your product cannot be replicated by others?
Yeah, so basically it is a design IP. So the single-use bioreactor design has been patented, the arrangement of shafts and disc and everything. Why it cannot be replicated, or it cannot be infringed is it is like, when you are drafting the patent, any of the patent, the innovator should take into consideration of all the iterations or whatever the possibilities which they can see that somebody will alter this, that, and everything. So we have actually included all the possibilities as a claim of our product, and that's why I feel that it is very difficult to infringe it. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Ravindra. Next question is, that India is the pharmacy of the world but that is in terms of volumes. How far do you think we have come in terms of IP-driven value innovations and technologies? This question is addressed to Ravindra, but maybe any one of the panelists can take this up, or maybe Dr. Premnath, do you want to comment here?
No, I think let Jayant talk about it.
I think you are going to put me in a problem now. I was going to be diplomatic. I think we had just an example as a Biocon. We have my lab as an example of an innovation based. I think we have Nuriel, we have Ravindra, we have here Aditya. But I think as a general, our observation in Indian pharma, while it is a pharmacy of the world, there's a tremendous lack of inventiveness. There is definitely no R&D in most of the pharma companies that I know, since I have been in this field for last 20 years. Most of our R&Ds are F&Ds. So I would stay over there. That innovation space is not yet rich. There is a huge gap for the innovations.
Anybody else want to take a shot at it? Smita, I think you should ask the next question.
Yeah, thank you, Ji, for that question. So there were two questions for Aditya, and I see that he's already answered them in the chat box. Thank you, Aditya. So the last question is, maybe Dr. Khandari would like to take this, that Mukund is saying that I have a question regarding the cancer prevention versus diagnostic problem. I am solving a similar natured problem in pest detection or diagnostics in agriculture. Do you think starting with diagnostics and then proceeding to screening is the way to go, or should we put in our efforts in the prevention area from the beginning?
I think prevention is a key. It's, I think, a very traditional way of first diagnosis and treatment. And eventually, I think as we have an information now on not on the phenotypes but on the genotypes, and since the sensitivity of detecting something at a very low concentration is going to change the paradigms, the way actually we will diagnose. And there's a huge, tremendous space that is being filled by some of the companies in cancer like Natera, Foundation One, and also Actorius is in the same line. But I think your question is, can you do this in an agricultural space? Yes, definitely. I think there are some ideas flowing around. I have been hearing about detecting early pest, and I would like to keep myself quiet here that I'm also wanting in this space. But yes, there is immense challenge and immense possibility. If you could do this, I think you are going to prevent grains that are being rotten, in the tons or metric tons. I think do it. I think it's a wonderful thought.
Thank you, Dr. Kandare. So I think we are almost done with our questions from the chat box, but I remember there was one question there which I'm not able to find out, but it was about who is your role model. So I know now after this program, you are role models for many of them, but if we can discuss who is your role model.
It's for me, I think I have many role models. One I see here, one Dr. Premnath, who is a role model for innovators. All of us would agree. I think we should be like, if you like actress, I think you change your opinion. So your role models, everywhere you have some models, your models will change. So I don't stick to one model, but I respect actually every individual who can be your high peer. And there are many, I think, in Pune. I think per capita role models in this country, probably Pune largest median or mean here, and especially in NCL and ICER and around those places.
Thank you. Nuriel?
Yeah, same here. They're just inspirations to be taken at so many different individuals and so many different things that are happening in the society today. And of course, Venture Center is one of the epicenter of this in Pune, definitely.
Hey, people would think we are setting you up to say all that. Okay. I think you need to be less diplomatic and straightforward. Who is your role model?
Venture Center, I mean, you look at the whole economy thriving from here, the startup economy thriving from here, especially from a breakthrough innovation point of view. And just the slide that was put up earlier, showing so many of us with firsts and novel firsts, that itself is a compliment. I mean, we don't need to really go beyond. So I think there's something in the ecosystem that has been designed or built in a way that is leading to these outcomes.
Aditya and Ravindra, we want different answers from you.
I was just going to say I agree with Jayant and Nuriel. So, I mean, an honest answer is that, there is no, I will stay away from and though I mean it, but I will just for the sake, I will give a different answer. Of course, we have, Dr. Premnath has been a great support for us as well as Venture Center. But as far as role model from a business perspective and entrepreneurship, there's so much to learn, and maybe it's a cookie cutter answer you may think, but it's not. There's so much to learn from so many people. So unfortunately, I don't have just one role model to talk about that. Sorry about it.
We must actually combine our agreements.
Ravindra.
Yes, of course, there are multiple role models, and it keeps changing. But for my case, what if I specifically point out is like in my journey, what my role model are like Dr. Kiran Majumdar show. She's a very brave biotechnologist. What I have seen and I have gone through his biography in very detail. I was a bioconist once, in around 2009, 2012, that era. But when I see their journey, I think at the time when the biotechnology was very new to the entire world, she started putting faith and putting investment and putting all the attention to that space, and she succeeded extremely well. So as far as the entrepreneurship point of view, She's my role model. The other huge invention in my space was done by Dr. Vijay Singh. So he's a Punjabi, but Dr. Vijay is he actually is a US citizen. Uh, he invented wave bioreactors for the bioprocessing industry, and from last 100 years, this centuries based invention in the bioprocessing industry. It's a huge potential in for that product, and I really admire for their efforts and their amazing innovativeness. I would say that their imagination, it's super. Yes,
Yeah,
amazing.
and probably it played a big role in
Yeah,
all the production of vaccines for COVID.
yeah,
Anyway, this time, right? Okay,
right.
so I think we should close now, Smita. I'll just a few closing comments. First of all, thank you, everybody. I think it was wonderful having you all, and also starting with Mr. Tambe, Biocon is such an inspiration as well. So it's good to have them. Tell what they think are the things that are going to shape the future as well. So first of all, for the benefit of the people who are there, clearly, all of you had a sharp focus on what you wanted to do, the market, the end use, or the treatment that you were trying to focus on. And very often there's no excuse to be sort of shy away from what customer needs and talk about only science. Science is important, very critical and necessary, but not sufficient to do these businesses, right? And that is something which many scientists, engineers need to take home. All of you started small. I remember this is the humblest beginnings for many of all of us did that in very humble ways. So did Venture Center. Our first labs were all we started in garages, literally, right? So that's fine. But I think it's important to dream big. As they say, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. And I think all of you demonstrate that. I had sent out a short excerpt, and Aditya was very excited about it, but so was I, which was, Vinod Khosla saying that hang in long enough and give luck a chance. Right? As an entrepreneur, you learn that very quickly, that you just need to know how to hang in there long enough so that things happen. And it's actually very true. It's about resilience, it's about persistence, it is about being resourceful enough to hang in there long enough, right? And somehow make it. So we are all proud of all your achievements. And actually, in the context of today's event, it was about 75 years of Indian independence. And a lot has happened. After all, before independence, we were not a country entity, but a colony, right? And when we probably went out to the US and Europe or wherever, we were seen very differently. And I think the reason we are seen so differently today when we travel out or go anywhere is thanks to all the achievements of all the people. And clearly industry and entrepreneurs play such a big role. I'm trying to dig it up, but the Venture Center, the first foundation stone that I'm not able to find it right now, but it was actually SL Kirloskar who was responsible for the small campus that we are in, and I'm trying to find out more about that as well. So all said and done, it's about building future industries of India, and I think all of you are playing a very important role. And I think we will end up shaping something very significant, and I'm quite optimistic about it. And that is the exciting journey that we can all be part of as entrepreneurs. So at least we'll have something worthwhile to tell to our grandchildren that this is what we did. And I think that makes it all worthwhile. So as Venture Center says, seeding tomorrow's enterprises today, and I think that's what we wish to do. So thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And thanks, Smita, for organizing this. And thanks to BIRAC, which has supported many of our activities. And of course, along with DST and CSIR, which are backbones of our organization as well. So thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dr. Premnath. Thank you, Smita.
Before everyone leaves, I request everyone to kindly switch on their videos for a group photo with all the participants. And thank you to all our panelists. We wish you all good luck. We are very much sure that, you know, say next 10 years, you will be big innovation-led industries like Biocon Biologics. And you will be part of this kind of a panel discussion where we'll have, again, startups who would be first in India. So Neha?
Yes, I'll wait for a second so that everyone is just coming up on the video.
I hope everyone has had a look at the feedback link which Neha has posted on the chat box. Kindly fill your feedback. Your feedback is valuable for us.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Neha. Are you done?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Yes.
Smita. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Once again, thank you to all the participants for their active participation and to all the panelists. Again, I would like to thank Biocon Biologics team, Mr. Shreyas Tambe, and all the Venture Center team members. Thank you, Dr. Premnath. Thank you, all panelists. Stay safe. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.